thank you very much to our Austrian colleagues, to Clemens and Simone, and to the ambassador for the invitation to all of you and to the EURAXESS North America to host their event here. It's a pleasure for me to be here. The European Union is very aware of the scale and scope of the European scientific diaspora, and indeed Europe is very proud of the European scientific diaspora around the world, particularly here in the United States. Take off my glasses now so that I can read. We're very aware also that you represent the excellence of European science wherever you go in the world, and this is very important for us. As Minister Fassmann said, Europe for a long time has always, in fact, been aware of the importance of mobility of researchers. And this is why we fund a number of initiatives to promote mobility, such as the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, but also to support European researchers to collaborate with researchers around the world. And through initiatives such as the BILAT project, we also fund a project to encourage European companies and to support them in their attempts to broaden their horizons and their markets in other parts of the world, including the United States, and you'll hear about that later, about the ENRICH project. And of course, we also fund the EURAXESS initiative, including the EURAXESS North America project, which is wonderfully managed here in the United States by Vicky and by Dima, because we really are interested in maintaining a link with the European researchers who have left Europe either permanently or temporarily. Of course, we always are very happy to welcome European researchers back to Europe. And indeed, you will hear later about initiatives such as the Marie Curie Fellowships and the European Research Council, which offer opportunities at a European level for European researchers, or indeed researchers of any nationality who want to come and work in Europe. Minister Fassmann spoke quite a bit about Erasmus, and it just reminded me, our Commissioner Moedas, who is the Commissioner for Research and Innovation, when he was at his confirmation hearings at the European Parliament, very proudly announced that he was the first commissioner to be of the Erasmus generation, because he had in fact been an Erasmus fellow himself, and now he is the Commissioner for Research and Innovation. His motto since he came, his mantra has been open science, open innovation, open to the world. This is his mantra for European research. So now I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking to you a little bit about our program for research and innovation, which is, the current one is called Horizon 2020. And Horizon 2020 is the European framework program for research and innovation. It is a program with 80 billion euros over 7 years. And what do we mean when we say it's a framework program for research and innovation? And here, for those of you in the audience who perhaps are not European, or maybe even those who are, it's just no harm to mention that in Europe, all of the member states have their own research and innovation funding. They have their own ministers, as we just met the Austrian minister here this morning. And they have their own research and innovation policies. The European Framework Programme, Horizon 2020, is something that comes in addition, on top of all of this. It represents at a maximum 10% of the total research and innovation funding in Europe. And this is very important to bear in mind. But what it does is, it offers a number of things. First, it offers a fantastic leveraging impact on the rest of European funding, because most member states, when they are planning their own research funding, they plan it with a view to improving their performance in attracting European Union funding. So in this way, it has an important leveraging effect. It also has an important impact in promoting collaboration across European countries and indeed across the world. And it has, in addition to that, an important role in promoting competition between European researchers, competition for these European funds. And finally, as has already been mentioned by the Minister, it has a very important role in promoting mobility of researchers. So, Horizon 2020, therefore, has brings us a lot of advantages. Its bottom line, however, is to invest in European future jobs and growth, to address people's concerns about their environment, their livelihoods, their safety, and to strengthen Europe's position in research and innovation and technology. And most importantly, as I mentioned, Horizon 2020 is open to the world. And this is what I would like to stress a little bit, is our determination and our intention to involve researchers from other parts of the world in the European research endeavour, and indeed for Europe to contribute to the European research, to the global research endeavour. In fact, I like to say that Horizon 2020, the funding of Horizon 2020, is what the European Union brings to the international table. This is the funding that we can provide for the European researchers, and we're really always open to collaboration with researchers from other parts of the world. So why are we so interested in international cooperation? Because we really do believe that it builds resilience in the scientific endeavour. It offers economies of scale and scope. It provides access to expertise, equipment, and facilities in other parts of the world. It has a very important role of building networks and alliances. So what is in some areas called people-to-people diplomacy. It offers opportunities, of course, for businesses and commercializations, and we'll hear a little bit about that later from Natalia. It offers, of course, opportunities for career development. And I know that you will also hear about that through the Marie Curie Fellows, one of the following speakers, and cross-disciplinary and cross-border fertilization of ideas. I was very happy to hear the Minister mention those exact words also. So another very important issue is, of course, that international cooperation is essential to tackle global challenges, and this is why we are so interested in it. So Horizon 2020, let me summarize it very, very quickly and really schematically into two major parts that may be of interest to you. The first is that Horizon 2020 funds collaborative research. Collaborative research, by collaborative research, we mean research between at least 3 different European institutions, and that's the minimum. And in addition to that, there can be research partners from anywhere else in Europe or anywhere else in the world. But the idea behind the collaborative research is that the research consortium tackles a large problem of a scale and scope that cannot be tackled by a single individual institution. We fund collaborative research projects in 2 major types of area. The first is what we call the societal challenges, such as health, demographic change and well-being, in food security, sustainable agriculture, marine and maritime resources, clean and efficient energy, climate change. We invest heavily in climate change research to mitigate the effects of climate change. In the social sciences, we invest heavily in the social sciences in a part of the program called Inclusive and Reflective Societies. And in addition to these societal challenges, we also invest heavily in what we call enabling and industrial technologies, such as nanotechnologies, which you'll hear about later. There's a keynote speech later about nanoscience. And you'll also, and we also invest heavily in information and communication technologies, manufacturing technologies, space technologies. Let me, just to indicate what this means, give you an example of one of the projects that we fund, which is an international project where Europe brings the European funding to the table, and the other partners in general bring their own funding to the table. So to tackle a very big issue, which everybody is interested in tackling, but nobody can tackle alone. And this project that I'd like to draw your attention to is called Atlantos, which is an integrated observing system for the Atlantic Ocean. Most maritime states have their own and have had their own observing systems for their oceans, and this includes those countries bordering the Atlantic Ocean. But the information and the data that was gathered wasn't always compatible, it wasn't always comparable. There was overlaps in what was being gathered, and there were gaps in what was being gathered. So this Atlantos project actually involves a large number of European Union countries, all of whom are funded by the Horizon 2020. But in addition, it includes the partners from the United States, from Brazil, from Canada, who bring their own funding to the table, and South Africa. And this is, in fact, the European Union funds the South African partners, because this is one of the things that we do. While we expect industrialized partners to be able to fund their own part of the collaborative research, the European Union can fund developing country partners in large collaborative projects. And this is actually also an important I suppose, USP, unique selling point of the European Union's programs, is that when developing countries are involved in our projects, we can fund them fully. So this is also for industrialized countries an interesting way of collaborating, not only with European partners, but also with developing country partners. So in the Atlantis project, the European Union is investing 20.6 million euros. So this was the collaborative research project that we fund. The other important part of what we fund are opportunities for individual researchers. And I know that one of the following speakers is going to speak in detail about the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, which are an absolutely marvelous initiative of the European Union, which has been hugely successful. But I would like to just take 1 minute, Vicky, because I might be running out of time, take 1 minute to talk to you about another aspect, which is the European Research Council, which was mentioned by by the Minister, Minister Fassmann. And for those of you who are not familiar with the European Research Council, I really do encourage you to consider it. The European Research Council was established to allow researchers to establish their own research teams in Europe. Most of the funding, and it is very, very well funded, the grants are very prestigious and they're very generous. Most of the funding of the European Research Council grants goes to starting grants, which are for researchers who are establishing their own research team for the first time. So this is a very important. The European Research Council offers people who are establishing their own research team for the first time grants of up to 1.5 million euros for 5 years. And these starting grants are for people aimed at people who are between 2 and 7 years after their PhD. The European Research Council then offers what we call Consolidator Grants, which are for people who are between 7 and 12 years after their PhD, and they can apply for up to 2 million euros over 5 years. And there are also grants available to advanced researchers who can be any age, but who have a significant track record in research and innovation over the last 10 years. And they can apply for up to 2.5 million euros for 5 years. And all of these grants are to establish a research team in Europe. But the commitment of the principal investigator does not have to be 100% to that grant. So therefore, a principal investigator, for example, in a starting grant, must commit to spending at least 50% of all of their working time on the grant. This allows them, of course, to apply for other funding from other grants, which they can also work on. It even allows them to hold a dual position in a European institution and in an institution somewhere else in the world. And that's the same for the Consolidator and Advanced grants, except the Consolidator grants are only required to spend 40%, to commit to 40% of their time, and the Advanced grants 30% of their time on the project. So this is very important. One other new aspect of the European Research Council, which was has only recently been relaunched, they did a pilot a few years ago. This is called the Synergy Grants. And the Synergy Grants are interesting because they require a collaboration between at least 2 researchers. So they're grants of up to 14 million euros over 6 years for a collaboration between a minimum of 2, a maximum of 4 principal investigators. And what's interesting is that one of those, either one of 2 or one of 3 or one of 4, can be established here in the United States and can be fully funded from the Synergy grant. And this is an important thing to be aware of. That's a very quick overview of Horizon 2020. I would like to just stress that Horizon 2020 will of course end in 2020, which as we know is around the corner. And you heard from Minister Fassmann that the European Union is well on track to have the next framework programme well in place in plenty of time. And the next framework programme will be called Horizon Europe. The European Commission has requested a budget of 100 billion for Horizon Europe, again over a 7-year period. It will represent evolution rather than revolution, meaning that a lot of what we recognise from Horizon 2020 will be maintained going forward. European Research Council will of course continue with even more funding. Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions will continue with even more funding. And we will also continue to fund global research challenges. And as he mentioned, we will have a specific focus going forward, a whole pillar dedicated to innovation and to try to create an ecosystem for innovators in Europe that the European Research Council has managed to create for researchers in Europe. So something very competitive, high risk, high reward, and generous and supportive. Oh, I still have 3 minutes. My goodness, I can go back. I wanted to say that currently in Horizon 2020 and going forward in Horizon Europe, international cooperation will continue to be a core element of our programs. As I mentioned, the mantra of our commissioner is open science, open innovation, open to the world. Moving forward, we plan to continue to work with partners around the world to tackle global societal challenges, to access the world's best talents and to share European talent with the rest of the world, and also expertise and resources. And we will currently in Horizon 2020, we have we have obviously the European Union's 28 member states, still 28 member states, and in addition, 16 additional countries are associated to Horizon 2020. Those additional countries are countries which are generally in the neighbourhood of Europe, so they're the countries that border Europe in the south and in the east. There are 16 countries there, so all of those countries in Horizon 2020 are, for all intents and purposes, as if they were member states. They can collaborate fully, and if you were interested, for example, in a Marie Curie fellowship to go to Switzerland, you can go to Switzerland. If you're interested in a Marie Curie fellowship to go to Norway, you can go to Norway. So that's important to realise also, that it's not only the 28 member states who are involved in Horizon 2020. And moving forward, a proposal has been made to extend this possibility for association even further, and to allow, for example, other countries who might be interested to associate partly or fully to Horizon Europe going forward. And this is also an important new element. So on that note, I would like to thank you all for your attention, and to thank Vicky and Dima for the invitation to speak here today.
Thank you very much, Mary, for introducing us to Horizon 2020 and a glimpse into Horizon Europe, what is ahead of us. I would like to jump in right now as a second panelist, and I would like to tell you a little bit more about EURAXESS, especially for those of you that have not heard of it or are still wondering what that strange word means and how to pronounce it. I'm not going to give you a course on that. I'll leave it up to you. It sounds great from each and every one of you, depending on what your background and nationality is, so you just go ahead and continue pronouncing it the way you want to. I wanted to perhaps just say that EURAXESS means access to Europe. So that was the thought behind when we were creating this project. Our motto is researchers in motion. So from that, you can actually already have a feeling that EURAXESS will be about researchers, will be about mobility, will be about individual scientists moving between countries and between continents and regions. EURAXESS as a European Commission's funded project was established in 2004. So it's been quite a while. The idea why we wanted to have a project like this was to basically facilitate the move of researchers and their family members from one country to another, especially when there are researchers coming to Europe, to the European countries from a non-European country or region, and they are a little bit lost, especially when it comes to visas, social security, health insurance, long-term permits, accommodation, leisure activities. How do they start? Who do they talk to? How do they actually go about moving from one place to another? We wanted to take away that burden off of their shoulders so they can actually focus on what they are coming to do in Europe, and that's research. Currently, we have two arms of EURAXESS. I like to say one is the European and the other one is the international. The European is much larger than the international, obviously. We have EURAXESS centers in every single European country, so the EU as well as the associated countries, and their main role is to welcome researchers and their family members. So they really give the information about practicalities of the country that you are moving to. So you can call them, you can email them, you can talk to them, and they will be the people that you can connect to. You can ask all these questions that you are not sure of about the country that you're moving into. And you don't have to be a non-European citizen or a non-European scientist. You can be a European, but you will be moving to another country where you perhaps do not speak the language, or you don't know what is the legal system of that country, what is the tax system of that country. So you can definitely go ahead, contact the people that work for the EURAXESS service centers, and they will be able to walk you through the process, and they will help you from the very beginning before you actually move, because many of you perhaps might need those visas or long-term permits or work permits to start working in a new country. So that is the European arm or the European EURAXESS service centers. Then the international one is smaller. We are present in 7 different countries or hubs. And currently, I want to share with you, we have an office in China, in Japan, in India, Southeast Asia, in South Korea, in Latin America and the Caribbean, and here in North America. So in North America, we are based here in Washington, D.C., but we are responsible for the US and Canada. And with my colleague Dima, I don't know where she is right now, but she was running around. Oh, that's not Dima. I hope. So we are collapsing back here, but we are standing strong up front. Stay. With my colleague Dima, we are responsible for the office for North America. We are wearing several hats, and we are responsible for different services that we offer to the researchers here in this side of the Atlantic. One of the main services that we offer is information about funding opportunities in Europe. So what kind of fellowships, what kind of grants, what kind of job vacancies that are available in the different European countries. We have a wonderful website that you might have already seen and heard of. It's very easy to remember. It's EURAXESS.org. And on that website, we have a huge database of different jobs and funding opportunities in all of the European countries that are covering all the different disciplines, so from life sciences to social sciences and humanities. And we also cover all the different stages of your career. So we start with those that are looking for a PhD position, a doctoral position in Europe, and then you can find postdoctoral positions, you can find positions that are for more experienced researchers. That's why when you go online, you will be able to see between 8,000 to 10,000 job vacancies available per day. So that's a very, very large number because of the fact that we cover such a large region and so many different scientific fields. But of course, you can go and narrow down your search, so you don't have to look through all the 1,000 different opportunities, but you can search by keywords, by country, by institution, etc. What we also have on the website is called Partnering Tool and Hosting. That's especially for those of you that are looking to find a scientist or a partner within a European country that you would like to perhaps start working with, or you would like to start a project and you really don't know anyone in Europe, or you're not familiar with where the people are and what they do, what kind of disciplines they are in. So we do provide also a database of partners that would like to collaborate, and they obviously state what kind of research field, what kind of background they have, so you can look for them in the database, you can connect with them and start talking and collaborating. We also have a section which is really, really new. It's called the Career Development section on the website, which is fantastic in my opinion. We just launched it a couple months ago, and you can go and spend, in my opinion, hours on looking at this particular area of the website. So you can take a quiz about where you would like to go. Perhaps you can answer a couple of questions if you are transitioning from academia to industry or from industry to academia, if you don't know where to go. So it will guide you through different steps and try to tell you what path perhaps would be the best for you, or what kind of resources there are out there in Europe, and where you could read more about your questions and about your concerns. So I would definitely encourage you to look at that part of the website. Another part, which I've already talked about, is the information assistance. So if you click on that button on the website, you will be able to find all the EURAXESS service centers in every single European country. And there is a website, a national website for every country in Europe. So there is EURAXESS Austria, there is EURAXESS Poland, there is EURAXESS Estonia. So there are all the countries, and if you already know where you're going, you just need to click on that particular website and you will find a lot of practical information about your respective country. And last but not least, also on the website, you will find a button that will be called EURAXESS Worldwide. And that's the international arm that I was telling you about. So that's us. You will find a button for North America where you are able to sign up for our flash notes. So when I mentioned earlier that one of our hats and one of our responsibilities here in the US and Canada is to inform the research community, the scientists, the students that are here about the different funding opportunities that Europe offers, not only from the European perspective, such as Marie Curie and ERC, but also from the national perspective. So from different funding agencies and research councils of the European countries, what kind of funding, what kind of fellowships they have available. So we try to collect as many as possible, and we put them into those flash notes, and we send it out to you twice a month. So if you sign up on our website, you are able to receive that, and you can receive that directly in your inbox and see what's happening in Europe, what are the new fellowship, what are the new opportunities, and if there is anything that you might be interested in. And then another hat, obviously, is the European Scientific Diaspora. And that's why we are here today. That's why we all came together and connected throughout this platform. So since 2014, we have been able to work with the European scientists in North America. There are a lot, there are many of you here on this side of the continent, and we always keep learning, we always keep connecting, we always keep meeting different Europeans across the region wherever we go. Up to this point, I wanted to share with you that we have 16 organized European scientific diasporas, which is a large number. It's the biggest European scientific diaspora platform outside of Europe. There is no other country outside in the world, outside of Europe, that would have so many European scientists based in one region. Within those 16 communities or networks, we are looking into approximately 10 to 15,000 scientists that are here. And I know we have more, and we also encourage other nationalities that do not have their own diaspora and their community to create one, because it has just proved to be very important and very useful. Obviously not only for the European research area or the EU as such, but also for you as individuals, because you can connect, you can learn from each other, and most importantly, you can have that link back to Europe through us or within the community that you are based in. With that, I am not going to take much more of your time. I think I explained EURAXESS now, and you have to now show hands how many of you understand what EURAXESS is about. Okay, because if you didn't, I have to start over. Maybe in a different language, but we'll leave it for tomorrow. So without further ado, let me invite to the podium our next speaker. And again, if you want to stay, you are welcome to stay seated, but you can also come up to the podium. So please welcome Christina Rodriguez. Thank you.
Hello. Hi. I'm Christina Gracia Rodriguez, and I work for the Spanish Foundation for Science and Technology. For me, it's a huge pleasure to be here and to share with us what my job at the office every day is about. And I would like then to thank Vicky, who is not there, somewhere, and Dima for inviting me. I work in different things at the Spanish Foundation for Science and Technology, and which would be EURAXESS Spain, would be Science Diplomacy, and would be Marie Skłodowska-Curie National Contact Point. So the link between these three branches could be the scientific diaspora, and I'm going to explain why. Well, as EURAXESS Spain coordinator, I think I don't have much to say. I think Vicky just did great. I completely support her opinions on EURAXESS jobs and on EURAXESS career development tools. So I really encourage you to visit our website and to have a look at it. I would like to say that, of course, we have our national website, and every country has different things in their website. So if you are trying to go to visit some of these countries, just visit national websites to find about them. If I start talking about our role in science diplomacy, I have to say that we started working in this weird area when we started collaborating with the scientific diaspora. Back in 2013, some Spanish researchers went to the Spanish embassy in London asking for some support. They had this idea of creating an association or something like that. And this news came to Spain, and at the Ministry of Science, they started thinking that it was a great idea and it was quite important to keep in touch with these researchers. So the Spanish Foundation for Science and Technology was appointed as the responsible for giving this support to these Spanish researchers abroad. Right now there are 13 associations of Spanish researchers abroad in different countries. Collaborating with them and through several annual meetings that we have organized with them, we have got some very good ideas and some interesting initiatives have come through. For example, as I said before, we had this EURAXESS Spain website, and we have a brand new section which is Science in Spain. It's important because researchers abroad told us that once they were abroad, they were out of the system, and it was very difficult for them to know what opportunities were in Spain. So we tried to make a compilation work about all the opportunities available in Spain, to inform about the research centers in Spain, and all of that is gathered under Science in Spain section in EURAXESS. So for us, it was very surprising that when we first launched this collection, Science in Spain, it was not only useful for the researchers abroad, but also researchers in Spain and managers in Spain thought, wow, nobody had done this. And we got this because we had people outside of our national system thinking about how to improve our system. So we really realized that it is very important for us to keep in touch with the scientific diaspora, because they have some distance from the system and they are involved in other systems of research and development, and they can give very good ideas. I'm sorry, but I need to go through my text. Okay. As I said before, we also work promoting the participation of Spanish institutions in Horizon 2020. I am national contact point for Maria Skłodowska-Curie actions. These actions are especially designed for mobile researchers. So here comes again the joint point of my work, the scientific diaspora. If you are thinking about a Maria Skłodowska-Curie action, you might know that there is a network of national contact points for Maria Skłodowska-Curie actions who are working to make these actions more visible and to try to give you better services. This network is Net for Mobility Plus, and we have a website full of interesting resources for the scientific community. And we are launching a survey for every researcher who is away from her home country. It's very interesting for us to know your opinions about our services, and even more interesting if you don't know about us. We have discovered, analyzing the first 100 surveys, that less than 30% of the respondents knew what an NCP national contact point was. So please, all of you, fill in the survey. And as they just said, I would like to give you some ideas about the Maria Skłodowska-Curie actions. There are different schemes. Maybe the most popular are individual fellowships, but I will start with the others, and then we will come to the individual fellowships. We have the RISE scheme, which is a program to fund exchanges of research and development staff between institutions. This means not only researchers, but also technicians or administrative people. In this case, the European Commission would fund European staff coming to other institutions in Europe or outside of Europe. Then there are the ITN programs, which give funding for predoctoral training. In this case, US institutions would normally participate as partner organizations, receiving researchers and giving them some training. There are also the co-fund programs. This is funding that the European Commission gives to the institutions to launch, strengthen, or upgrade their recruiting processes for pre-doctoral and postdoctoral researchers. For you, it is very interesting to know which co-fund programs are ongoing in each European country. And for example, if you want to go to Spain, you will find in our Science in Spain section under EURAXESS Spain website a map in which you can easily identify the eight postdoctoral programs and 3 predoctoral programs that are right now recruiting people. And the last one would be the individual fellowships. Again, in individual fellowships, there are different schemes, and most of them, they don't have nationality restrictions, except for global fellowships. This would allow you to invite European researchers for 2 years in your US lab, and then this researcher would have to go back to Europe for another 12 months. In the rest of the schemes, you are invited to participate. You would get a 2-year contract in an European institution, and it's, as the main requirement is to be mobile, not to have lived in that country for more than 12 months, then I think you all comply with it. These calls, the individual fellowships, are open from April, May, I think, till September. And it's very important, if you're thinking about preparing an application for this program, to get in touch with the center, not only with the principal investigator, but also with the research European projects unit, because they have all the knowledge about how to write an application. Also, you will need to go to Net for Mobility Plus website and check the handbooks, leaflets, success stories, frequently asked question blog, to get some insights on how this works and how to write a successful application. Well, I've been very fast, because my first part was about EURAXESS, and as I said, Vicky just did it really well. So I would like to say first that I'm very happy to be here. Dima, Vicky, thank you very much. I would like to say that I'm surprised to be in a 6-woman panel. For me, we are always struggling to get gender-balanced panels, so congratulations for that. And I would like to say, if you're going to Europe, please try to reach these national contact points in our website. You will find all of them. And the last message, please, please, please fill in the survey. I will be back there at the Spanish table, and I will be happy to share any information with you about Spain or Net for Mobility Plus. Thank you very much.
Hi, good morning. Guten Tag. Alles gut? Yeah, that's as far as I go. Everything else is in skiing language in Austria for me. So we are so happy to be here today. So thank you again for everyone who came in this morning. I have been working on this for a while because as part of the former administration, we actually we're the ones who signed off in October 2016 the ability for us to be able to work better with Horizon 2020. So it's just amazing to see the results. It's good to see so much collaboration and cooperation. And as an entrepreneur, it's great to have all these policies and programs, but we need to figure out how we're going to commercialize this. We need to figure out how all these amazing scientific researchers who have been studying and doing so much work for 15, 20 years, how we're going to take their innovation to the market. And I think that's what we do really well here in the US. I know a lot of folks have heard about Silicon Valley, right? Well, Silicon Valley didn't just grow out of nothing. It actually grew because of a program of the US government called the Small Business Innovation Investment Corporations. What we did in the 1950s actually was to look and see who were the better people to invest, right? You might have a company, you might have an idea, but if we don't have venture capital, if we don't have angel investment, if we don't have grants, then we don't get to grow. So Silicon Valley started with an SBIC grant. It was a disadvantaged area. It was the government, it was the policies that actually created this. And actually in invested in venture capital community to go out there and really make investments, to take that risk, right? Because we're all risk averse. As a government and banks and different systems, institutions are all risk averse. It takes time. I bet you anything that some of you, have not started a company. It takes a lot of guts. It takes a lot of patience and a lot of tears. Believe me, I've started 4. And so I would never have been able to grow my second company. My first company failed completely. If I didn't have help from the small business development centers, the Welcoming Center in Philadelphia, which I'll be talking a little bit about later, and all these different opportunities that the government and the institutions and the private communities actually come together and work together in order for us to build these businesses. Because it takes a village to get these companies going. It takes so much effort to go ahead and be the billion-dollar companies of the world. And what's interesting today, too, is I'm excited about the fact that we're talking about mobility and immigration, okay? 20 out of the 90 companies that are the billion-dollar companies in the US today were started by students. Students who came from here, from other countries, decided to stay a little bit longer and start a company. And this is Google, this is Tesla, this is Eventbrite, this is so many companies that you hear about today. And it's because of the amazing mobility that we have, the migration that we have, especially from the EU, that we've been able to build these companies. $96 billion, just these 20 companies started by immigrants. That's a tremendous number, and we have to celebrate that. ENRICH, I love ENRICH because not only have I been working with it, but a dear friend of mine, Blandine Chantepied, who couldn't be here today, is very passionate about. So the European network of research centers and hubs in the US, there's 5 hubs. Philadelphia is one of them, and 2 hot desk centers, one in San Francisco and one in Boston, are part of the whole, collaborative approach from Horizon 2020. How are we going to go ahead and create a soft landing, right? So you might want to come to the US, you might not know where to go, but the soft landing program that we built in Philadelphia allows for MBA students and students across the different universities to be able to do that market research for you. We actually also were able to get a grant from the Department of Commerce through the Economic Development Agency to be able to build the first global accelerator program. And so this idea was to be able to, how are we going to get all these different companies that are in the EU to come and look at New Jersey and Pennsylvania and Delaware, Maryland, as an opportunity. Why? Because we have a huge pharma tech corridor between Washington, D.C. and New York. So some of the programs that ENRICH does, as well as the Global Accelerator, is they partner with the Bio Convention. And the Bio Convention is a program that will be taking place in June 2019. And we have opened our application process. So if you want to go ahead and apply and participate in biotech, you have January 6th to the 11th to be able to make those applications. We have 20,000 folks coming across the world to this area. We also take companies from the EU. This is where I participated for an entire week in Las Vegas at CES. So CES is our largest technology conference in the US, and we were able to host about 40 companies that were looking to expand in the US. So we do a lot of the pitching, training to pitch, training to see how you're going to go ahead and look for investments, how are you going to go ahead and do your financials, how are you going to go ahead and present yourself. It's not easy to come up with a pitch as a scientist, trust me. People in technology and engineers, it's really hard for them to come and do that 30-second elevator pitch to sell your idea and get that $1 million you need. So we do a lot of that. We do a lot of the mentoring. We do a lot of the training and pitching. And so it's been really interesting for us to educate, to explore, to make the introductions, because this is what part of ENRICH is about, is to make those key introductions, to make those key connections, but to also help train you to be able to get the company from startup to growth phase to be a billion-dollar company, because that's what we really want for you to be, is someone that really gets your company going, so you're actually being able to not only create jobs here in the US, which I like, but also be able to come back to the EU or their respective countries and do so much more, and be able to really build that brand and those companies across the world. So this is some of the things that we've been doing on the ground. Like I said, everything is local. If you want to learn more about ENRICH, please let me know. Also, if you want to be part of the global startup Accelerator, we've been accepting applications, and I think the application got cut off, but we'll be actually doing a whole round in 6 months as well. So if you know of any companies in your respective countries, please let us know. It's the Global Startup Accelerator, as well as ENRICH, the European Network of Research Centers and Hubs in the US. And we're continuing to grow. I'm an advisor there. I can't tell you how excited it is for me to be able to welcome and welcome so many researchers and scientists and entrepreneurs in the US. So again, thank you. I know that we'll be having questions and so on. I'm not big on talking a lot for a very, very long time, but I'm about action. So, we're about, making sure that you have the right information. And if you want to go ahead and talk to our mentors and our, folks that are volunteering, as well as the universities. And my God, we have 600 partners across our program. That's a lot. And so if you want to go ahead and know more about it, please let me know. Again, our website is full of information. We have the partnerships with the universities and all these different institutions that we try to make sure it makes sense to you, makes sense to you and your partners, for you to be able to grow, start, and be successful. So thank you again.
So good morning, everyone. Bonjour à tous. Dear ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, and distinguished guests. First, I'd like to thank Viktoria for the invitation. We met in Ottawa just recently. There was the European Research Day where NSERC was invited to talk about our collaboration with Europe. And it turned out that I am actually in DC for another conference, so I thought I'd stop by and talk a bit about what we do at NSERC and what we can do collaboratively with Europe. So, as Viktoria said, my name is Katherine Podeszfinski. I'm currently the acting director for the Scholarship and Fellowship Division at the Natural Science and Engineering Research Council, which are shortened by NSERC. And NSERC is one of the 3 granting councils in Canada. So my presentation will be in 3 folds. First, I'll start by giving you a quick overview of what NSERC does. Then I'll talk about some of recent collaborations we have had with Europe. And finally, I'll present you some of our programs that foster collaboration between Canada and Europe. So NSERC is actually celebrating its 40th anniversary this year. NSERC is one of the 3 granting council in Canada, along with the Canadian Institute of Health Research and the Social Science and Humanity Research Council. NSERC supports, essentially, that's the way, the granting councils are organized in Canada. We're separating our mandates into 3 distinct agencies. So NSERC really focuses on supporting research in the natural sciences and engineering, which is encompassing physics, chemistry, computer science, all the way to biology, and physics and astrophysics and other areas like this. In 2017-2018, NSERC total budget was close to $1.2 billion Canadian. So NSERC aims to really make Canada a country of discoverers and innovators to the benefit of all Canadians. NSERC supports research university students in their advancement of studies, promotes and supports also discovery research, and fosters innovation by encouraging Canadian companies to participate and invest in post-secondary research projects. Of the $1.2 billion that we invest every year, 69% of that goes to discovery research. So investigator-led research, and about 31% of that portion of money goes actually to innovation. And through these programs, we support about 11,000 researchers and more than 22,000 students and fellows. Those investments are done across Canada, mostly in the provinces where we have the largest concentration of post-secondary institutions, mainly Ontario, Quebec, British Columbia, and Alberta. The investments are in a variety of sectors and include information and communication technology, environmental sciences and agriculture, natural resources and energy, manufacturing, just to say a few. And Cirque has had, a bit like Horizon 2020, we had our strategy plan and Cirque 2020 that is about to is on its last year of taking place, where we add one pillar identified as going global. And a lot of our action essentially around that, I'll speak a bit more into details as to how we supported that specific pillar. So, and Cirque is committed to support international collaboration. Research performed by Canadian researchers involved international collaboration. In 2001, 43% of Canadian publications in the natural science and engineering involve international collaborators. And in 2014, this number has grown to 55% and is still growing, which is a good sign, I think, of our continuous efforts to increase our collaboration with Europe and other countries. Of this 55%, 40% of Canada's international co-publications are with the European partners, including Germany, France, Italy, Spain, and the Netherlands, and many more. I was just like, couldn't list all of you guys, but essentially, we've been quite active in that front. So recently, we had talked about the Horizon 2020. So NSERC has been participating in several ERANET calls as part of this initiative. We've had, at NSERC at least, we've had relatively limited experience with participating in ERANET and other collaborative projects. Some of it comes from internally not necessarily having a lot of experience in that space. It's a bit new to us, but also being able to overcome some of the hurdles to actually participate in doing as an associate partner and not necessarily full partner in some of those calls. So we have had this international collaboration is really important aspect for the natural science and engineering and also for Canada. And access to global scientific and engineering knowledge and expertise and increasing participation in international research endeavors is essential to gain access and to contribute to the world-class scientific and engineering knowledge, talent, and expertise. So over the years, recent years, NSERC has participated in a limited number of ERANET joint calls, but I'll just talk about a few of them. So as you know, Canada is really known for its outdoors and a lot of lakes and water bodies in the country. And so we were really successful in participating in waterworks. So in 2016, the Water GPI launched a joint call with ERANET co-fund Waterworks to support research and sustainable management of water resources in agriculture, forestry, and freshwater aquaculture sectors. And NSERC was a key participant in that particular joint call. I myself was recently representing Canada on another ERANET, which is called the GenderNet Plus. For those who have maybe know about this particular call, so it was launched in 2017, December 2017, and it's a joint call that invites research integrating a gender dimension in addressing urgent societal challenges. GenderNet Plus has chosen to take the United Nations Sustainable Goal as the point of departure for this call. And NSERC was particularly interested and supported applications that addressed and explored interactions and interdependency, explicitly between the SDG 5, gender equality, and SDG 9, which is the infrastructure, industrialization, and innovation, and also the SDG 13, climate action. So this opportunity is giving us access to critical massive expertise and thinking of the subject of gender, and also being able to influence and introduce a new equity, diversity, inclusion action also in the European space. Lately, we also have participated in the Belmont Biodiversity Joint Call. This call was launched in October 2017 to support global environmental change research. 135 projects were received and 34 involving Cirque participants. There was a high success. 9 projects were on the top 17 ranked applications that were successful for that call. So even though we're not participating in a lot of calls, when we do, usually it's a good investment for Canadian participants. So in addition to participate in those AeroNet calls is one opportunity to collaborate with Europe, and Cirque has also several opportunities for collaboration. So I myself, as director of the Scholarship and Fellowship Division, I'll just give you a brief overview of some of our programs that are accessible to international students, but also promote the fact that Canadian students are allowed actually to take their awards abroad. So I welcome researchers that are in Europe that have connections or expats that are Canadian now working in Europe to take the opportunity to actually welcome in your labs some of our students. So we have the NSERC, we support students at the postdoctoral fellow and also at the graduate level for either the whole period of their study in Europe, or also we have supplements to awards that provide them an opportunity to spend a few months in Europe in a laboratory. Over the past 10 years, we've supported over 765 training awards in Europe. Various countries, it's all in various countries. We also have 2 programs that perhaps you are aware of, or maybe not, but you should take note, to support also international students to participate in the research endeavor in Canada, which are the Vanier and the Banting program that have supported over 200 students from Europe to come to and study in Canadian post-secondary institution over the past 5 years. So student mobility is important. It's an important issue and is being looked by the Government of Canada. As the demand for highly qualified personnel grows, it is essential for Canada to gain access to the best talent both in Canada and from abroad. So we have any questions about that, I'm certainly happy to answer after. We also have several programs that are more geared to our researchers. Well, actually, I could continue on another program that we have for training. So we also have what we call the CREATE program. These grants are actually what we call collaborative research and training experience support grants. And they have, we actually have a special agreement right now with Germany through the DFG to actually have a joint training program where Canadian students are allowed to go to Germany and vice versa. So those, this allows to create training teams of highly qualified students and support PDF from Canada and abroad through this program. As you know, also we have a very large program of discovery grants. These grants are actually for our researchers. They support ongoing programs of research for our Canadian researchers. And through this program, Canadian researcher can actually collaborate and also bring, well, those funds can actually be used for international collaboration. We also are currently modernizing our research partnership programs. This is where our program, part of our program where we do a partnership with industry. And there's been some recent change to this program and more to come actually as to exactly how we have been asked by the government to consolidate some of these programs and to actually come up with a new structure for these partnership with industry. And in this new opportunity, there's a larger place put on and larger emphasis on the opportunity for international collaboration. So I invite you to actually consult our website. It's in motion right now. There's there's been a lot of consultation this fall to look into how we can actually change this program to make it more attractive and more efficient with our partnership with industry. So Canada also has been active in various large multilateral collaboration, such as the Human Frontier Science Program, where we invest $1.5 million over 3 years as a management supporting party. And this organization is really supporting research in the life science area. And we also have been a member of the Global Research Council for many years. So I want to finish this presentation by highlighting an announcement. I was super excited because I couldn't say much. I was hoping all week that I could actually say something about it, and eventually our minister announced yesterday. Big announcement on the international front, so I'd like to share with you. I unfortunately don't have a lot of detail, but essentially, Minister Duncan, our Minister of Science and Sports, has announced yesterday the new Frontier and Research Fund. For those of you who were or maybe some of you were in Ottawa recently, the president of Cirque, so our Social Science and Humanities Research Council, had given a bit of a teaser at the event to say that it was coming, and now, so now it's official. So the Canadian government will invest $275 million over the next 5 years, and $65 million a year ongoing to support research that is international, interdisciplinary, fast-breaking, and high risk. So all of this is just hot off the press. I was scrambling to try to get a little bit more information to give you some of the details. From what I understand, there's multiple stream, different ways of actually involving either Canadian funding to make it faster to access or joint collaborative endeavors already established in Europe. And I'm not quite sure yet how Europeans or other researchers from other parts of the world can actually tap into that money. But I'll encourage you to keep an eye on this. We have several millions of dollars this year to be invested by the end of the fiscal year, which is essentially by the end of March. So it's coming quickly. So if you have or you know people in that space, I encourage you to actually read more about it on our website. And I'll stop here and hope that I've given you a bit of a glimpse of some of the opportunities for transatlantic funding, and thank you for the opportunity. And I'll be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Katherine. That was actually my question to you, because as she said, we had our European Research Day a month ago at the University of Ottawa, and the president of one of the research councils gave us a teaser, and we were all excited about this huge amount of money coming out from the Canadian ministry, from the government, and see, what it's going to be put into, how, where, when can we touch it. So it's official now. So congratulations. I think that's a wonderful achievement, and it's one of the really good practices that perhaps other countries can also take on board. And I'm hoping that, through that money, or with that money, the collaborations within the Horizon 2020 projects and the framework programs to come might be easier, or what might be more supported as well from the Canadian side, because as you know, if you are partnering within the Horizon 2020 collaborative projects, not every non-European country is automatically funded. We have the industrialized countries such as Canada and the US, where it's a little bit harder, and there has to be a a very strong cause to be supported. It is possible, of course, but I think through initiatives and through funding like this, we are going to see more and more collaboration from two sides of the Atlantic. So I would like to thank you, all our speakers, for the first panel, and I would like to now open the floor to you for questions. If you could introduce yourself very briefly and have a brief question and then say to who, or if you want to address the whole panel, that's also fine. There are going to be some microphones in the room, so we would like to now open the discussion, and please ask. We have the experts here. We have the people that know about all the different funding that I think you would be interested in. So please don't be shy, and now it's your time to speak up. Yes, please. Do we have a, okay.
Hi, thank you for this very informative panel and forum. My name is Contessa Bourbon. I write for the London Times and Wall Street Journal. I'd like to ask Natalia, what particular discoveries or scientific discoveries that some groups have submitted to you that can be marketable in US or in Europe? Can you cite some examples, please?
You mean for the ENRICH program?
No, the projects, actual projects and discoveries that are new and that can be marketable or supported by your group.
Okay. Well, so in the U.S., we've had many programs. One of them is the SBIR, the Small Business Innovation Research Grant, which is very similar to what Horizon 2020 is doing. We do it in 3 phases. We give 150,000 or so for the first phase for a concept, just an idea, okay? And it can be a researcher, it can be a business person, it can be anyone. But it has to come from, the need has to come from one of the agencies or departments. For example, DARPA. DARPA, which is where, you know, a lot of innovation, the computer, internet, all started at the Defense Research Program. ARPA, or Advanced Research Program for the Department of Energy, where they're doing a lot of the big research on solar and, you know, energy conservation and energy and batteries. One example is Qualcomm. Does everyone know Qualcomm or Intel or Apple? All of these companies actually got a research grant from the SBIR, from the Small Business Innovation Research Grant, to get their company going. 70% of your Apple, your iPhone, has SBIR research-driven innovation grant money. Mars, iRobot, my God, wow, so many different companies across the US that have had these type of research grants granted. Qualcomm, and I served with Irvin Jacobs when I was appointed by President Obama to the Innovation Advisory Board for the country. When we were trying to restore the economy during the recession, we created an Innovation Advisory Board, where Irvin Jacobs, who started Qualcomm, was part of it. He started with 6 grants from the SBIR, and that's how Qualcomm got going. So there's a lot of different examples. That's why I admire what Horizon 2020 is doing, because we've seen it. You know, you see it every day. How we have to be able to, as a government, as an institution, be able to fund all this amazing research, because it is really high risk. We also have the SBIC program that I mentioned. Well, we actually tell the VCs that they have to invest in high risk, you know, crazy disruptive stuff, because no other person is going to do it. So we're actually giving the government guarantee. We're guaranteeing that investment. The government says we're going to guarantee 80% of your failure. So if you decide to get a grant, you, as an investor, you decide to invest in a company that's really highly disruptive, the government will back you up. We do the same thing with loans. If you take out a loan, and if you want to export, that's our highest guarantee loan. You have 80%. If you fail, the US government will go ahead and take that risk and swallow that. So there's a ton of a dumb bunch. Under Armour started with a $12,500 loan, which we took the guarantee for, and he started my Baltimore office.
Yes, thank you. Well, good morning. I'm Eagles Milbergs. I'm co-founder of a nonprofit in Seattle that helps helps entrepreneurs in water technology. I appreciate the idea of global collaboration, research, technology. We're very interested in forming partnerships in Europe. I wanted to ask the panel to address the question of challenges on intellectual property protection. What are the kinds of issues and methodologies and things to think about as we try to engage more aggressively in global collaboration with Europe when it comes to IP protection?
I got it. On IP, of course, it's a very important issue, needless to say, particularly when we're talking about cooperation in innovation as well as in research. In the European Union, when we fund a research project, the intellectual property remains with the inventor. So therefore, the European Commission doesn't take the intellectual property. We don't own the intellectual property. This is important. And when we fund particularly collaborative research projects, the collaborative research projects, all of the partners have to sign what's called a Consortium Agreement between themselves in advance. And this Consortium Agreement in advance, which they sign in advance, must take on board the how they intend to proceed with the intellectual property that is developed during the project. So in effect, we leave it to the consortium themselves, and it will vary because some consortia will include industrial partners, some will be all researchers, but the partners themselves determine how they will proceed with intellectual property that's developed during the project. So there's one element. I don't know if some of the other panel members would like to add to that.
We signed an agreement with the EU, our patent office, and back in 2010 or so, which was to make sure that we could actually corroborate, make sure that when when the company has an IP here and goes through the entire process, that there's a respect and there's a reporting mechanism to the EU to be able to say this company has actually gone ahead and started their process for their IP to be recorded and so on. I don't know very much of what's going on today as far as that is concerned, but I think that it continues because in Congress we allocated $1 billion to the trade office to be able to have a global perspective, and they have offices and people dedicated to making sure that the IP is being worked out with other countries. It's a very good office, actually. Our trade patent office. I know because we actually translated a lot of the information, and a lot of it is in different languages as well. So,
thank you very much for the question and the answers. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Yes, please.
Thank you. Hello, this is Clara Bloom from Open Austria, our tech office in Silicon Valley. I was surprised and happy to hear when Minister Fassmann announced that the program following Horizon 2020, Horizon Europe, that the European Union plans on spending, I think he mentioned 100 billion euros. So I was wondering if any of you ladies could give us more information about the program, what the timeframes are, and if they have some sort of specialized funding initiatives, such as, I don't know, funding more research in robotics or AI or sustainable sustainability, something, tackle the problems of our times? Is there a specific framework for that?
Clara, hello, nice to see you in person. Horizon Europe, indeed, will be the next framework programme for research and innovation. It will be the follow-up programme of Horizon 2020, which I briefly introduced. So Horizon 2020 currently has 80 billion euros over 5 years. The next framework programme, which will be from 2021 to 2027, we propose, the European Commission proposes, have a 100 billion euro budget. The areas that will be covered, as I mentioned in my presentation, will be an evolution rather than a revolution. The evolution meaning that we will continue to fund the Marie Curie fellowships, and Marie Curie actions. We will continue to fund the European Research Council, but in both cases with more money. We will fund a pillar on collaborative research, which will be about particularly aimed at solving global challenges. Global challenges in health and environment, in energy, and of course sustainable development. And indeed climate action, which is very important, and for the European Union we invest heavily there. And then the third pillar will be investment in innovation, to develop a European Innovation Council, which, as I mentioned, we hope will create a similarly active and motivating ecosystem for innovators in Europe that the European Research Council has managed to create for researchers. So that's it in a nutshell.
Don't turn it off, Mary, please, because I have actually a question for you as well. I want to rewind and go back a little bit to Horizon 2020 and ask, if I'm not mistaken, the US is one of the biggest partners under Horizon 2020 to collaborate with European partners. So what are the research areas, what are the fields that the US likes to collaborate or is successful with the European partners under the current framework program?
Thanks, Vicky, for the question. Indeed, 14% of all international partners in the international partnerships of Horizon 2020 are indeed with US partners. If we talk about the collaborative research projects, the areas where there is most collaboration is in the area of health research, marine research, particularly under the Atlantic Ocean Research Alliance, energy research, and transportation research. Health research, I have to specify, and I'm glad you gave me the opportunity to specify this because I didn't say it when I was speaking. As I mentioned, in general, Horizon 2020 is the money that Europe brings to the table. And we expect our international partners to bring their own funding. The area of health research is one exception. In the area of health research, because we have a reciprocal agreement with the National Institutes of Health here in the United States, if there is an American partner in a consortium that is putting forward a health project, the American partner can also be funded by Horizon 2020. That's not generally the case for the other areas. So this is obviously an area where we have a lot of American partners in Horizon 2020 projects. But then we also have other ways of collaborating. So notably when the US partners are bringing their own funding to the table through methods like twinning. So we work a lot in twinning, for example, with the Department of Transportation here in the United States. Notably at the moment we're working on twinning projects that are funded by the Department of Transportation with Horizon 2020 funded projects in the area of automated vehicles. In the area of marine research, we have this wonderful cooperation between Canada, the United States, and Europe, which is called the Atlantic Ocean Research Alliance, where the three funders, the three countries, funders, agree upstream where are the areas where it is really useful to collaborate, and plan their research funding calls for proposals or requests for proposals, as you say here in America, around commonly agreed themes. And then after that, the researchers can all work together. So this is a quick overview. And I should also mention, of course, that the United States is so far the favored place for Marie Curie fellows who are leaving Europe to come to the United States for up to 2 years, because they can be funded by Marie Curie to come to the United States for up to 2 years. And we have hundreds of US researchers who come to the European Union every year, also funded by Marie Curie fellowships, and hundreds also of US researchers who have been granted European Research Council grants.
Thank you so much. You prepared actually a ground for me. My next question was to Cristina, and I wanted to ask specifically about the Marie Sklodska-Curie actions. We might have in the audience researchers who are thinking about applying for this fantastic fellowship to go to Europe for up to 2 years, or you might have colleagues or friends who you can tell to and ask, or perhaps tell them that this opportunity does exist. I do get oftentimes questions about the host institution in Europe. Some researchers are thinking about a fellowship, but they just don't have yet that initial contact with any of the European institutions or principal investigators. So I wanted to ask you if you have any advice to those scientists that would like to apply for a European Marie Curie Fellowship, go to Europe. Where should they start, or where should they look for the right host institution?
Okay, so if there is no previous contact, there are 2 places where to find information for a first contact. One would be through EURAXESS jobs website. They have funding opportunities. You have jobs, you have hosting offers, and funding offers. If you go to hosting offers, you will find expressions of interest from different institutions who want to receive researchers in certain areas. So that would be a first step. If you want to go a bit further, you can look into Net for Mobility Plus website. In Scientific Community section, you will find this section of expressions of interest. The NCPs in every country, we gather these expressions of interest from different institutions and we publish them there. For example, in Spain, last year there were 500 expressions of interest in different areas. So if you have no contacts in Europe, that 2 places would be the first step.
Thank you very much, Cristina. So you have hundreds and hundreds of institutions within Europe that are interested in welcoming Marie Curie Fellows, so you just have to go online and find them. Do we have any other questions from the audience? No. Okay, I actually wanted to maybe address Natalia before we close this panel. So if I understand correctly, ENRICH, as a European Commission's funded project, helps startups from Europe come to the United States, and it helps them grow or establish a branch, and then have like sort of a 2-legged institution or a startup, so 1 leg in Europe, 1 leg here?
Well, usually the companies that come to ENRICH have gotten started already in Europe, and so they're probably doing already a little bit of money, have a little bit of profit, have received some kind of investment or a grant. And so what we've seen in the biotech area especially is they start thinking, they have a couple employees. They start thinking, well, my technology or my innovation or my product can be sold in the U.S. Can be, marketed and so on. So the ENRICH program and the Welcoming Center and the Science Center Accelerator program, what they do is they provide market research to see if your product is actually viable in that market. So instead of you making a huge investment or using that grant money towards just coming and exploring, it does a better job at really doing the research for you. That's why there's two centers in Boston and San Francisco, and then 5 across the U.S., because you might want to explore your biotech or your scientific research goes into a particular area that maybe it's not so done in Philadelphia. It's done more in Austin, Texas, or Chicago. So there's that ability for you to connect you with those programs. And just a note, we've been doing this for a while, but it's important to see that there's so many resources that people don't use, and that they don't really get out there and really have it available to them, or they don't know where to look. So the universities are such great centers. I can't emphasize enough how important the universities are. And they're all tied as well. Each one has a small business development center. And so it's a great matrimony between the research and a group of MBA students that can help you look for that opportunity. And it doesn't matter from where in the world you are. So I can't. They help me a lot with my second company. So and there's women business centers as well. So make sure that you get to those too. There's a lot of resources that we're not tapping into. So this is a great space for you to connect.
Thank you very much, Natalia. I'm just so much looking forward to this funding that just came out. I have no even further questions, or I just have the hopes and the visions that are going to come out from Canada. So again, congratulations on that, really, and good luck with connecting with more and more, hopefully European partners as well, through that budget. If we don't have any more questions from the audience, we can finish a little bit earlier, so that way we will have, instead of 15 minutes, 20 minutes for the coffee break that follows this panel. I would like to thank all our panelists for their very informative and very insightful presentations. And you could see that we are going no PowerPoint today because of the beautiful ceiling and the sunlight. You won't be able to see anything. But what we will do, we will collect the presentations that they have given to you, to us this morning, and we are going to put them on our website after the event. So you have it for reference, you have the website, and you have the information that they've been talking about also in the form of a PowerPoint. So please join me in thanking all the panelists, and I welcome you to enjoy a coffee break for 20 minutes.